Well, we have to talk about this. I mean, you all have seen the videos on your WhatsApp and you see it forwarded many times. You'll see the videos on social media. The school fights, I mean, we restarted the term just for Tuesday. And Lord knows how many fights you've seen, how many videos you haven't seen. And I know what it does to your emotions. You put your, you see your children, you see yourself. It really makes the blood boil to see, what is basically assault at these schools, and it's getting more and more serious. I saw one with a taser. I see there's a big piece of iron the other day with two girls fighting in a school in Diego Martin. I mean, while the ministry is having its talk shops on its committees and subcommittees and researching, I don't know what they're researching, because I feel it could be a little more transparent on what they're going to do about this. As a short-term measure, in response to just this week's, the frequency of violence, they've identified 15 schools that they've called trouble schools, and now they're going to put police officers outside of these schools. Now, I remember back in 2018, Anthony Garcia, the former education minister, saying that he didn't want any armed people around children because it gave the impression that the school was a jail. And he said schools aren't jail, because once you think they're jails and you have, inmate mentality and you take that out into the real world. So what do you all think about that? What do you all think about, placing the police officers there? I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. If something happens in the school, outside the school, they're nearby, they could respond in a very expeditious time, but there has to be more to that. I mean, there really needs to be more to this. It's a complex issue, and here to talk about it, we have the CEO of the Roots Foundation, a very roots man himself. We have Mr. Solwazi. Mr. Solwazi, good morning.
Good morning to you, Akash, and your viewers.
Good morning. Right, so, I mean, let's get straight to it. Your initial thoughts on hearing about what they're calling a short-term measure in response to school violence.
Well, again, good morning to your viewers and listeners worldwide. My initial response was, a matter of fact, a night before, about 2 nights before, someone called me and said, the solution to this problem is to place 2 police officers outside every school in Trinidad and Tobago. And my response to that person was, as much as that is a sort of knee-jerk reaction, a sort of emotional response, is a waste of, right? I said, I don't think it's feasible to post 2 police officers outside each school to prevent school violence. So to hear that has been a decision taken. I remember recently, Akash, we'd have seen viral in some schools in the States, something called Dads on Duty, where they had fathers going into schools, right, to assist with preventing or reducing school violence. So if we are having the police officers deployed at the schools, we need to first know how would they be deployed? Are they with arms? Because I saw they said it's community policing. So would they be have on polos, right, or dressed as police officers? So these are things that need to be articulated public. And also, Akash, I think you set me up. I think you set me up this morning.
Tell me.
Because your introduction this morning, Akash, says it all, right? What you did this morning is exactly the result we're seeing right now in society. When you called me last night, I decided to have a discussion with my team, and a 25-year-old, because one of the try to solve problems of youth by only having adult discussions. We try to develop programs for youth without the involvement of youth, and then say they're not interested, they're wasting our time. So we asked a 25-year-old, and he said, Emtima, did they do a cognitive assessment on these children before they returned to school? He said these children were home for 2 years, and you said it, Akash, some of them been online during that time. So the minimal influence, the block or the community that they may come from, which may be a criminogenic community or what we call hotspot, the minimal influence that community may have had on these children whilst they were out physically in school, they were home for 2 years. That is a maximum influence. Add that now to a dysfunctional home, right? Where parents also locked down. Some have no income, some have minimal income, right? The abuse in the home, be it physical abuse, verbal abuse, locked down home to those children. So take all that and you just dump that. And you said correct. We need to help them to, my wife is a standard 2 teacher, and we asked her, how is it? And she said, her children who are in standard 2 now, the last time they were at a physical school in person, they were in 2nd year. And she said these standard 2 children, break time, they're unsure of what to do. They don't know how to walk. She said, come on, y'all have 10 minutes. Get your snack, and come back. Akash, standard 2? When you're in standard 2, you're wild, right? So yes, these children need to be re-socialized into that physical space. So let's look beyond the fights and see if we could implement programs to assist these children. And I agree with you, beat a solution into them, right? So if you use any police officers, let's use them wisely. They don't have no big guns in front of the school.
Tell me about that. Tell me how do we use them wisely? Because I guess what you're getting at is that you're afraid that done in the wrong way, it sends the wrong message. So what
Right.
kind of message are you worried about it sending, and what's the right way you think it should be done?
No, and I hope Mr. McDonald is listening, Mr. Hines is listening. We have the hearts and minds of the IATF, Interagency Task Force, hearts and minds run by Superintendent Subero, Oswald Subero, right? And his able-bodied team of officers. Akash, you see that model of the hearts and minds? They are from the IATF. Anybody in these communities will tell you, boy, them IATF and them, them is killed. They will label them the worst, not officers, right? They have a different approach to community intervention, right? So I would have feel much comfortable if I saw or read that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of National Security, and the police service are using the Hearts and Minds Division, right? I'm not against the community policing, right? Because persons like Shabodi has been doing human service for years. Corporal Sergeant Small in Central, right? We know the community policing works, but I'm telling you, see that approach with the hearts and minds, right? So
What's different about the approach to the community police?
They listen, hearts and minds involved on the ground. Listen, you have to see them in action, Akash. It's amazing, right? But that thing about listening, they listen to everybody. They don't listen to those who are polished and refined in the community. They want to hear from who we call like probably the gangsters or the troublemakers. They will sit with them and say, yeah, talk to me. What's going on? What causing this, right? They listen, right? And that whole aspect of listening is important because persons want to be heard. Right.
And Timaba, let's not take any responsibility away from the parents and the parents who are failing their children, the guardians who are failing their children at home. They don't know if they do their homework. They don't know if they went to school. They don't know what's going on with their own children. I mean, we really need to get these parents to take responsibility.
Right. Cash, trust me, the Prime Minister said the same thing too, and I agree. After the meeting last night, I called my daughter to ask her her opinions, right? And we were talking, and I gave my daughter this joke of an incident that occurred with both of us, right? Because she didn't grow with me, but she'll be, from time to time, we engage each other. And there's one time in a school bag, I am not ashamed to say this. I saw what I thought was we call sanitary napkins, or pads. And my daughter was about 7, 8. And I got scared. I said, my daughter seen her period, Gosh, I called my cousin in Canada, so good. I said, I cry. I said, how this child can be, Now I know that could happen at early age. I called the grandmother. She said, no, I panty shields. I told my daughter, I said, girl, I am your father saying this. I didn't know. I am not ashamed because I didn't know, right? So some parents just don't know. They don't know how to parent, right? I'm not trying to absolve them of their responsibilities and duties, right? But they also need that help, right? Another thing, and my daughter said I could share this. When she was about 7, 8, some young men attacked her in Port of Spain. It was near crazy, right? And I went and I picked up in school the following day. And whilst we were in Port of Spain, 2 young boys passed, and one said, hey, from yesterday. And I called him back. I said, you know me? He said, I never touch you. I never do this. And I said, what's your name? Parents' name. I took information, his school, everything. And when I took down all the information, I let him go. My daughter said, why I didn't beat him up? And I told her she was correct as a child to say that. That's how she felt. And I said, if you are walking in Port of Spain and see a big man beating a little child, what you would say? She said, oh God, he advantaged us. I said, so I can't beat him up. So parents cannot join the fight with the children. And we've seen parents going into schools and physically getting involved in fights for their children or with their children. So we know there is a lack of parenting, right? That is poor judgment. No? If you want to call it, that is the Will Smith reaction. No, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, and we're about to wrap here, but you mentioned that the parents should get help on how to parent, and there's no shame in getting help with how to parent. It's a very complex, it's a very, very big task. Where could they get that help?
Akash, we have, again, them plugs. I hope they could give me a plug when next time they're on the air. We have like Families in Actions. We have social services within the ministry. So many agencies. Akash, on television, you've seen advertisements from party child. Listen, we have, just Google it, reach out. They may not know, okay, so you're here now. Families in Action, call them. Children Authority, the Ministry of Social Services, right? Reach out. Office of the Prime Minister, General Affairs Unit, reach out. They have NGOs who are doing a lot of work, right? Reach out. So there is support out there. But I want to say, I saw the ministry put together a multidisciplinary team. And I hope persons like myself can be invited to that table because, I'm seeing ministry this, ministry that, ministry the other, right? And as Zina, she hope other stakeholders can get involved, right? And the ministry knows who are the workers out there.
Correct.
Right? So they need to reach out. This is not a government problem. This is a national problem. And those like ourselves and others, many others I could call names until 8 o'clock, who doing the work out there, reach out to us.
I agree. Thank you very much. And I'm happy you reached out to you today to get your opinion. So thank you very much for your expertise, Mr. Solbazi. And I really hope they reach out to you. I mean, I know the work you do. I know that you're on the ground. I know that you yourself, just like the Hearts and Minds, you listen. So yes. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And of course, Trinidad and Tobago understand that this thing of school violence is solvable. It's not a Trinidad and Tobago issue. Google it, look it up. In the States, in the US, when they went back to school, lots of school fights there as well, right? So it's something that we could do, something that we could fix. Listen to your children. Talk to your children. All right? Let's take a break. We have Akil coming up next. So stay with us.